Welcome to episode 12 of the Yes You Coaching podcast. I'm your host, Anna Manning, and today we're going to be talking about procrastination, which apparently means the action of delaying or postponing something. Some of the definitions that I looked up also talked about knowing, on top of that, on top of it being the action of delaying or postponing something, it was also with like a knowing in the background that it's going to give you a worse result if you do it and you're still doing it. I was like, God, that sounds bad when you look at it like that. Where are you, or where do you procrastinate? I was just thinking of an example before this podcast. I was like, I don't procrastinate that much anymore. Like, I can do occasionally when I'm having a bad day, but I'm generally not too bad. And then I was like, oh my God, I am going on a hen do in under 2 weeks' time. I've known about this for months. Have I booked the flights? No. Am I procrastinating? Massive yes. Why am I doing that? In fact, maybe I'll use this as an example as we go through the podcast, right? It's something that happens to all of us sometimes. But if this is something you identify with and you're like, oh God, yeah, I procrastinate a lot, imagine how much of your precious time this is wasting. Like, I've looked at these flights about 10 times now, and I've spent, my God, probably like 3 hours of my life, if I tot it up over the time, thinking, oh my God, I should do that, I should do that. How much of my precious time am I wasting, and my precious brain space am I wasting procrastinating and flapping around these flights? Oh my God. I keep saying, oh yeah, I'm going to do them today. And then I don't do them. So annoying and such a waste of my time and my brain space and my energy and ugh. So where are you procrastinating? What's the stuff you procrastinate on? Is it home stuff? Is it work stuff? Is it relationship stuff? Like, where does this show up for you? And why are we talking about this, right? I'm a confidence coach. We talk about all things confidence at work. Well, the reason that I think it's really important to talk about procrastination in terms of confidence at work is that when we start to procrastinate a lot and even worse, we like identify as a procrastinator, it has a knock-on impact on our confidence. We start to not trust ourselves as much as we used to. We start to not trust our own word. Oh yeah, I'll do that thing. Then I don't do it. So how am I going to trust myself when I say I'm going to do it today when I know I'm just going to procrastinate and put it off again till tomorrow? Now I lack confidence in my ability to book foreign holidays, which isn't great when that's supposed to be something fun. But you see the point. If procrastinating is something it is happening all the time for you, or it happens more often than you would like, it definitely has a knock-on impact on your confidence. So when I started doing some research for this episode, I looked up and I found something really interesting that talked about different types of procrastinators and people being different types of procrastinators. And this was something, it was to do with motivating adult learners, and it was from the University of Maryland. And they identified 6 different types of procrastinators. I've put it down into 3 because I actually think a lot of them really, really overlap. But just listen to this and see if you identify with any of these different types of procrastination. So the first one is the perfectionist procrastinator. Bit of a tongue twister. But essentially, this is somebody who will put in like excessive amounts, or what could be seen as excessive amounts of time or energy to make sure that everything they do is perfect. And these people are likely to put off starting a task because they fear failure, or they've got doubts about getting it perfect, getting it right, and then thinking they might not be able to, and oh my God, so they end up just pushing it off the end of their desk and procrastinating. Do you identify with this type of procrastination? Sometimes when you ask perfectionists if they procrastinate, they're like, oh God, yeah, I definitely do that. They're not necessarily linking the two things together. So if this is you, if you're like, everything must be perfect, I have 100% standard in my brain the whole time, fine, great. But just know whether that is impacting on you in terms of procrastination. Because if your only standard for doing things is like, has to be perfect, has to be 100%, otherwise I'm not perfect and I'm not worthy and all of this, it's going to be very difficult to get started. It's not exactly a low bar to entry, is it? It's a pretty high bar to entry. Imagine if your boss gave you a piece of work and was like, yeah, good luck with that. It needs to be perfect. You'd be like, shit, don't really want to turn that in. Don't even want to start it. Want to avoid it. And that's what's happening with the perfectionist procrastinator. The second type that they identified is the dreamer procrastinator, which sounds kind of nice, but it sounds that nice when you get into it. So their take on this is that somebody tends to recoil from anything that might be difficult or distressing, and they might be passive rather than active. Now, where I see this is where I see this in a real life setting, I should say, is when people have these kind of dreams and ideas and like hopes and wishes in their heads, maybe in terms of their career, maybe in terms of something else, but they never make them a reality. It's like, I heard this quote, I'm going to butcher this, but it says something like, where is the biggest collection of like unacted dreams and hopes? And it's like a cemetery, which is a pretty sad thing. But this is what I think is happening with the dreamer procrastinator, right? If this is you and you're like, yeah, one day I do want to write poetry, or, one day I would really like to, enact this change at work, or, go for this particular type of job, or change my career, right? Whatever. But you never quite manage to get around to it. You never quite make it tangible. You never quite do anything about it. You are procrastinating on your dreams. You are a dreamer procrastinator. And let's face it, all of us do this because it's potentially scary and difficult to like put bombs onto various areas of your life. I know, I've done it. And it's really easy to procrastinate because sometimes the status quo is easier than going after something that you dream about or that you hope about or that you wish about. So maybe you're a dreamer procrastinator. Oh, I actually lied and said there was 3. There's 4. The other one is a worrier procrastinator. And this one apparently is characterized by a tendency to be indecisive and to maybe fail to commit to themselves and to specific decisions. This person will tend to lack confidence in their abilities, and that causes them to avoid or delay doing things. They might be dependent on others for advice or reassurance, and they've got high resistance to change. So they prefer being safe and having things known over things being risky and unknown. And right, let's face it, all humans like to have things safe rather than unknown and risky. Or should I say most, because that's just how our brains are wired. But I could really identify this with some of the people that I've coached. So do you think you're a worrier procrastinator? Do you want to do things, need to do things, but sometimes fail to commit yourself to the specific decisions and actions that you'd have to take in order to actually get it done? And lurking in the background, might it be a worry about your own ability? About whether you can actually do something, about whether you're good enough, about whether you can figure it out, which has you avoiding something or has you delaying doing something. I see this one all the time. I think I've even done this one, right? Sometimes, yeah, I'm sure there's things where I've got one of these at the moment, actually. I'm like, I'm learning to play the guitar, and my partner keeps telling me, oh, you should like try and learn some theory, blah, blah, blah. Look at the music. You're only ever going to be able to get so far, like looking at apps and playing chords. And I'm like, yeah, we'll do that. We'll do that. And then when I finally got honest with myself, I was like, the reason that I'm not doing it is because I have this worry that everybody else could actually learn to do that and could actually learn to read music and all the rest of it. But I just sort of can't. Like, I can't do that. I always found that really hard when I did it before. And so instead of actually making the decision like, yes, I'm going to go for this, or no, I'm actually not, I'm in this weird like land of procrastination and indecision where I'm just like, do I get a guitar teacher? Do I not? Do I try and learn music? Do I not? It's like, and what's driving that is this doubt in my own ability that's sitting in the background. The next one is an overdoer procrastinator. And apparently, This character may have a tendency to suffer from low self-esteem, which compels them to take on more than they can actually handle. They might have trouble saying no or asking for help, and they might assume so many different responsibilities and roles that they get easily distracted and they continue to be confused about priorities. This kind of procrastinator looks like they are struggling to do things because they're overwhelmed, and they might be overwhelmed because the amount of things that they've said yes to. They might have a high mental load. For a lot of the women that I coach, this is really the case. They've got really high mental loads because they're trying to do everything at home and everything at work, and yeah, it's a problem. But are you an overdoer procrastinator? To keep taking on more and more, and you've just got this like mental overload that sort of paralyzes you and prevents you from doing anything. All right, so they're the kind of procrastinators that I recognize in myself and in other people that I coach all the time. Maybe you recognize some of them in yourself, right? And the purpose of this is not really to label yourself, right, as a certain type of procrastinator or even as a procrastinator. And be careful with labeling yourself, because what happens is when you're like, I'm a procrastinator, your brain wants to act in accordance with who you believe yourself to be. So if you believe yourself to be a procrastinator, you're more likely to procrastinate. So watch out on that one. Maybe don't label yourself as a procrastinator. But I'm going to give you some techniques and some tools and some ways of thinking about things that might help with the procrastination. And I've got 5. Let's see if I throw any more in, but for now I've got 5. And the first one is this: understand what is happening when you are procrastinating. So I take procrastination to be an action. It's kind of an inaction, right? But it's also an action because I'm actively not doing something. But I might be thinking about it, I might be planning it, I might be organizing, but I'm not actually doing. I might be doing something else instead, like going to eat a cherry bakewell. I've got 4 cherry bakewells for myself if I complete 4 podcasts in one day. We're at 2 podcasts. Not sure I'm going to get those cherry bakewells. Anyway, I digress. Not important. But I want you to understand what's actually driving the action of procrastination. Same thing that's driving everything in human behavior: how you feel and what you're thinking. So what you're thinking about a given task creates how you feel about that task. How you feel drives the action of procrastination. So let's use my flights example. And actually, I'm doing this live. How do I feel when I think about booking those flights? What's actually going on here? And the answer is confused. Okay, so I feel confused, and I know that's causing me to take the action of procrastinating, but what thinking would be driving the feeling of confusion? What's actually going on subconsciously in my head, even if I'm not aware of it, which is creating the procrastination? Let's see. So what would be creating confusion? It's not like I don't know how to book flights. I do. I think it's because I don't know whether to stay there for longer. I wanted to do some work from different places this year because now I'm working completely remotely. I just need somewhere with good Wi-Fi and off I go. So I don't know whether to just book for the length of time of the hen do, or to extend it before, or to extend it afterwards. Don't know whether I'm going to be able to find somewhere with good Wi-Fi. Don't know whether I'm going to be able to reliably work. Worried that that might have a knock-on impact on the business. Okay, here we go. Now, can you see why I'm procrastinating? I can. All of those thoughts are happening subconsciously in my brain, and they're just creating this confusion and worry. That was the other thing that came out right there. Did you hear it? Worry. And that confusion and worry is creating the action of procrastination. Do this little exercise. I just coached myself live there. But do this little exercise for yourself. Find out what is actually happening when you're procrastinating. What is actually behind it? You might find out some stuff that you didn't really realize. I just found out some stuff that I didn't really realize there. Number 2, use the ARS framework. Now, I know this is a ridiculous name, but it is very memorable. I think you're probably not going to forget it. If you find yourself in the middle of a procrastination station, use the ARS framework. And how that looks is it's an acronym, ARSE. So, acknowledge how you're feeling, that's the A, or acknowledge what's happening. Give yourself some reassurance, that's the R. Give yourself some support, that's the S, and give yourself some encouragement, that's the E. So on this example, right, let's just keep using my flights example because we're in it now. Okay, so let me use the framework here. A. So, okay, Anna, I see that you're worried and you are confused about booking these flights because you're not sure about whether you should work before or afterwards, whether you should stay in Rome, whether you should do your first stint of remote working in conjunction with this hen do. Right there, I have acknowledged what is happening. Then R, reassurance. You could make either decision, really, actually, Anna. I reckon that if you book a business hotel, you'll at least be assured that the Wi-Fi will be good enough because people have to work there, right? So if you do want to stay, you could even just do it for a few days, but that could be a way of making sure that you can do it in a way that doesn't feel worrying because you know you're at somewhere with good Wi-Fi, you're going to be able to serve your clients, it's going to be good. Right? Notice how I just gave myself some reassurance. S, support. And you know what, Anna? Like, it's important to give yourself credit for even thinking about it, right? Most people would never just quit their job and start their own business, let alone think about living and working remotely somewhere as like a digital nomad, right? That's cool. Kudos to you for even thinking about doing it. And I'm not surprised that maybe you're feeling a little bit worried or nervous about it. I think that stands to reason. And then E, encourage. And do you know what, Anna? You always figure everything out. You can definitely figure this out. You'll find a way of making it work. You always do. There's the ARS framework, right? Live and untamed. Next time you're procrastinating, use that ARS framework. I can tell you how I feel now, and it is a lot different than worried and confused. It's like calm. I can feel it, like the feeling's gone from my chest right into my abdomen. I feel calm. I feel like, ooh, maybe this could actually be quite a cool thing, and I could do it in a way that could work out. Right. So use the ARS framework. Number 3, if you find yourself procrastinating, strive for getting it done rather than making it perfect. Give yourself that as your benchmark. It may be that you're unwittingly saying to yourself, or unconsciously, you're like, this has to be perfect and I can't get it perfect. And then you're procrastinating. So, what you need to say to yourself is, this does not have to be perfect. All I want is like bronze standard, or I want a 70% standard, or I want a shitty first draft, whatever. I want an outline, I want bullet points, and that is going to be success. Tell your brain that on purpose so it doesn't go unwittingly just using its unconscious perfect standards and then not being able to do anything, being like frozen in fear. So choose your standards and make sure you tell your brain that that is the standard that's going to be applied. And if you manage to meet that standard, lower standard, by the way, lower the standard, that's the point, then that's going to be success and you're going to be rewarded and encouraged for doing that. Number 4, I want you to be really clear with yourself about what it is you're trying to do and how you're going to try and do it. So often when we're procrastinating, it's like swirling in our brains, right? It's like, oh God, I've got to do this and I've got to do that. And like this big piece of work, and it's all just like swirling around in the back of your brain. It feels like a massive monster when that's happening. So, what I want you to do is get the monster out of your brain and down onto a piece of paper or your laptop, whatever. And I want you to write the task down, and then I want you to chunk it out into little bits. Bullet points, whatever. And then I want you to give yourself a time scale. The monster always looks way worse when it's swirling around in the back of your head. It looks way better when it's on paper, usually. It also gives your brain a little bit of structure. If it's like flapping around and it's in like fight or flight, you want to pin it down, you want to write it out, and you want to give yourself a time scale. And then you want to give yourself a nice little reward for doing it. So many of us don't do that. And then once we do, it's funny. Sometimes I coach people on something and it's like swirling in their brain. And then 2 minutes later, they were like, I don't know why that was so hard. I actually can figure out a way. It's like, yeah, you can. But it's very difficult to figure out a way when the brain swirl is what's in charge. When the brain swirl is in charge, you're going to keep procrastinating. You want to take control with your prefrontal cortex, with your executive functions, with the very front of your brain. Tap on your forehead if you need to. And be like, okay, write this task down. I'm going to write down the component parts. I'm going to tick them off as I go. So that's number 4. Be really clear with yourself about what and when. Number 5 is build back trust in yourself over time. So what I see with people who procrastinate a lot is that, and I used to do this, so I used to be one of them, you lose confidence in your ability to get things done. You lose confidence in your ability to do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. And unfortunately, that has a bad impact on your confidence. And it also makes it less likely that you're going to be able to follow through next time. So if you've been procrastinating for a long time, if you're a chronic procrastinator, I want you to think about little ways that you can build back your confidence in yourself to get things done when you say you're going to do them. Yes, you will fall off the bandwagon, and that's fine. Do not have a perfect standard over this. But what is the one thing that you're going to do today? And you're going to actually do it. And what's the one thing you're going to do, say you're going to do tomorrow, and you're actually going to do it? I would encourage you to make this really low bar to entry. Here's one example of this for me. I have been like very indolent since the beginning of lockdown. I don't ride my bike as much anymore. I don't go anywhere as much anymore. Right, I'm pretty lazy. But I know that I really need to do something about that. And it's been stressing me out, but I haven't been doing anything. I've been procrastinating on actually getting like out there and getting some fitness done. My coach helped me to see that I was like putting the bar way too high. And she was like, what would be easy and what would be fun? I was like, do you know what? I could walk for 30 minutes every day. I'd really enjoy that. And I've done that before. She was like, yeah, cool, do that. Guess what? Done it every day. Really enjoying it. Definitely going to do it tomorrow. Definitely doing it the day after. I lowered the bar and I'm building trust back in myself to get something done when I say I'm going to do it. So where could you do that? Just a word of caution. I'm thinking about people that I coach on procrastination, and they tend to be people who will achieve a lot and try to achieve a lot. If you're in a procrastination cycle, I want you to strip back the amount of stuff you say you're going to do. Because the only thing that happens when you say you're going to do this massive long list of things that isn't actually achievable is that you don't do them all, you spin in confusion and doubt, and at the end of the day, you feel like shit 'cause you haven't done them all. Then you beat yourself up, and the whole cycle continues again the day after. So, this is number 6. If you're procrastinating, strip back the amount of stuff that you're actually going to do. Believe me, you will not get less done because of this, you will get more done. Is there just one thing that's really important for you to do that day? Do that. Fuck everything else. If you've got time, you can do other stuff. Maybe there's just 3 really important things, and instead of having 26,000 things on your list every day, strip it back to the bare essentials. You will get more done. You won't be stuck in such a freeze response that makes you procrastinate on everything. All right, that is what I have got for you today. Last thing. I am now running some training courses that you can take, and they're open access. So some people are going to come and take the training as part of just their development. Some people are going to have their workplace pay for it as part of their workplace development, as part of their work-life development. We've got various topics. One of them is about speaking up. So for people who struggle to speak up, especially in challenging or more senior settings, it's going to be an in-depth coaching workshop that's really going to help you to think about where and how you can speak up more. We've got one about quieting your inner critic, so that horrible voice that sits inside your head and helps you to be a procrastinator. We're going to learn how to tame that inner critic and to quieten down in 3 easy steps. There is also another class around how to grow your professional confidence, and maybe a couple of others that I don't remember. I'll put the details in the show notes. Come and have a look. If you have other people that you work with, tell them about the classes too. I've been in the corporate world since I was, 21, 22. Most training is shit, in my experience. This is actually really good. These classes are really good. I'm only doing my very best ones. So take a look at the details in the show notes. Come and book into a class. If you work and there is a budget for that kind of thing in your workplace, go and ask your employer to pay for it as part of your workplace stuff. If not, come and join us anyway. All right. So I wish you well in not procrastinating this week. I'm off to book my flights to Rome. I'll let you know in the next episode whether I manage it. Have a great week. Bye.